Okay, here's what the committee did last night, Klatt.
Let's see it.
What is your my takeaway last week is the same, is they want 2 SEC teams in. And if Bama wins or if LSU wins, they're going to get 2 SEC teams in. That's what they want.
I think that they're evaluating Alabama before they see them with Mac Jones. So to date, I guess you could make an argument for Alabama where they're at. They're giving them a lot of credit, even though their resume is incredibly thin. They don't have a win against a ranked opponent. In fact, the only ranked opponent that they've played, they lost. They lost that game at home, obviously, to LSU.
But wouldn't it be impossible if Alabama with a backup beats Auburn, even if it's ugly? You can't drop Alabama. That one spot, 5-6, is something.
Well, the problem comes in where they are not going to have that 13th game. They're not going to have that extra Power 5 game. Remember now, even if Oregon lost to Auburn and Alabama beats Auburn, Oregon's going to have the chance to play an 11th Power 5 opponent, where Alabama will have played 9 Power 5 opponents. Okay. They're going to have the ability to be a conference champ. And if Oregon were to win out, they will have gone 10-0 in Pac-12 play, and we've never seen a Power 5 conference team go 10-0 through a league schedule. We've never seen one that has the 9 conference team schedule go 9-0 and then win a 10. So there's going to be a lot of momentum for Oregon at that point. And one last point,
Bama's season will be over at that point.
Excuse me?
So Bama's season after Auburn is over.
That's right.
So Oregon's going to be on TV beating Utah potentially.
Potentially.
And you think the committee's going to be like, hey, we got to move them up.
And remember, the committee is supposed to honor the conference champion unless a team is, quote-unquote, unequivocally better. I don't know if Alabama with Mac Jones can be considered unequivocally better than Oregon. At least that's my own estimation. That I'm not saying Alabama is bad. And this, by the way, I reserve the right to change based on the fact that in 2014, I had a very similar opinion when J.T. Barrett went down for Ohio State. And I was like, listen, with Cardell Jones, Ohio State is not one of the 4 best teams. And then they went and just boat raced Wisconsin 59-0. Yes. And I was like, okay. So if Bama hammers Auburn, I would probably make an argument for Alabama at the time. Now, I've been a conference champion supporter.
You have.
And throughout this whole process.
Yes.
Even when it was Penn State over Ohio State, I argued for Penn State in the year that they had 2 losses and won the Big Ten. But at that point, it becomes much more difficult to leave Alabama out if they were to prove that they don't miss a beat or are potentially better with Mac Jones. And I know that sounds crazy, but remember, Ohio State was better with Cardell Jones in 2014.
A lot of times on this show, I think you waffle, but this one's pretty good by you, Klatt.
Uh-oh.
Klatt gives out his top 10, had the courage to do this. A lot of you college football sycophants, nonsense. Klatt will bring it. He brings the hammer here. It's good to see you have LSU third because that defense is garbage. I watched 2 hours of Ole Miss run up and down. LSU, I think, is a terrible matchup against Ohio State and Clemson.
Or Clemson.
I think they will run all over. And by the way, I don't remember the last time, there's probably a stat, that you could put a team number 1 and you felt their defense was not a liability, a major concern.
It is a major problem. And it's been a problem throughout history, by the way. If you go back to the start of the BCS, Colin, which is 1998, when Tennessee won that first BCS championship game, only one team has won a national championship since the late 90s with a defense that is not a top 25 defense.
Where's LSU's?
53rd.
Okay, so that's a problem. My eyes do not deceive me.
It was Cam Newton's Auburn team, by the way. That was the one champion. So now you're having to say, like, okay, Joe Burrow is Cam Newton. Right? Joe Burrow in this offense is what Cam Newton and Auburn would. And listen, I'm not taking anything away from Burrow. Burrow's phenomenal. He's going to win the Heisman Trophy. He's been great. You know what LSU is right now? They're trying to do exactly what Oklahoma has done the last 2 years.
And this
is the Baker Mayfield version of Oklahoma. That's what LSU is right now.
This is a very good point. SEC fans, you got to own this. And I defended the SEC for years on this. You got to own it. LSU is basically a Big 12 powerhouse now.
Right now, yes.
No defense.
Which is fine. Listen, Baker and OU almost beat Georgia, and they were going to be a tough matchup. I'm not saying that they can't win the national championship. I'm just saying that putting them at number 1 just because I think is nonsense, in particular when you look at the balance and dominance of Ohio State and Clemson. I think Ohio State, by the way, after the next 3 weeks, if they were to win all 3 games, is going to have maybe even a stronger resume than LSU. They will have 5 wins against currently ranked teams. If they're the Big Ten champ and undefeated, that would be a better resume than even LSU with a win against Alabama. I really think Ohio State still could be the number 1 team in the playoff rankings going into the playoff. And here's why that's such a big deal, Colin, is because there's a big difference between 3 and 4 right now. I think that the toughest game is LSU or Ohio State is going to have to play Clemson in a national semifinal. Do you really want that? I wouldn't. Clemson looks amazing all of a sudden since that 1 point win over North Carolina.
By the way, Clemson's the best college football program in America today.
I mean, the ACC
Alabama,
is so bad. They've been bored for most of these. But think about this. Trevor Lawrence in 5 straight games has 3 touchdown passes. He stopped turning the ball over. Their defense is amazing. They can run it with Travis Etienne. Their defense is very good. Where are the holes for LSU? When you look at Ohio State and Clemson,
there's no holes.
There's not a lot of holes.
No, best pass rusher in America, Ohio State. Clemson's done this to us for 3 years. By the way, it's very Belichickian. They kind of scrap and kick it around for the first 6 weeks.
Well, because they can with that
That's
conference.
right. And they experiment. And by the way, that's why Belichick does. He can experiment. He's got the Jets down the road. And Belichick kind of experiments and tweaks and experiments. Clemson does the same thing in conference. Pete Carroll did a lot of this at USC. When the conference was down and he was rolling, they would kick it around, and then end up in a bowl game, totally healthy in a weaker conference,
That's right.
and boat race everybody.
That's right. I think Clemson is a tough one. I think that it was fine to criticize them early for their play.
Yeah.
You know, they turned the ball over too much early. They had the 1 point win against North Carolina, but since then they have been totally a dominant team. And I wouldn't want to see them in a national semifinal. You're going to have to play Clemson at some point. I think Clemson wins their national semifinal.
Yeah. Hey, let me throw this at you. Tua got hurt.
Yeah.
I think he's going to drop a little bit in the draft, and
Yeah.
I think it's the greatest thing that ever happened to him. I said this yesterday. If he was my son, I wouldn't say it publicly, but I would tell my son privately, you're way better off going to the Chargers, Carolina, Pittsburgh,
Sure.
or if you
That's
start.
that's interesting. I don't disagree with that sentiment.
You don't make your
I
money
think
with your first NFL contract. Nobody makes their money on it.
I mean, I don't disagree. And the last first pick quarterback to work out was Andrew Luck. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that.
It's really tough to work out as the first pick to go to a team that bad and really work out. We'll see with Baker and Cleveland. I kind of agree with your take. They don't really know who they are. They don't have a great identity, and we'll see what they are moving forward. Baker's likely to have a third head coach, within his first 4 or 5 seasons in the league, which is very tough to get through. I hear your sentiment on Tua. It hurts to say that, right? He had played himself into a position where he was going to be the first or second pick in the draft. That's obviously a giant financial windfall. My heart sank when I saw this. I just hope that the vascular damage is minimized and not serious, because that's ultimately what really hurts you with these hip injuries.
But how in the world am I going to pass on him? There's no way. I'm watching Kyler Murray with...
Sure.
I'm watching. He's got prototypes. Lamar Jackson is an outlier. Nobody plays like that. This kid, I'm seeing this kid in the league. One guy, Russell Wilson's the MVP, and Kyler Murray is if it wasn't a kid named Lamar Jackson, Kyler's the shock of the league.
Sure. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Now what you have to, if you're a GM though, and part of what you love about Tua is his comparisons to guys like Russell, who's an amazing creator, and Kyler, who with his feet can make NFL defenses look silly. And here's this guy that's had 2 tightrope surgeries on his 2 ankles and now a hip fracture.
I'm not passing on him.
I understand. I'm just saying, if part of what you love about him is the fact that he can be creative, he can be mobile, and he can do things outside of the pocket that make your team better, that's a concern. I don't disagree. I wouldn't pass on him. I would pass on him probably way up high. But if I'm one of those teams that have a quarterback need in the middle of the first round, I'm with you. I think that's a no-brainer selection all day long. And then in a year or two, we'll be looking up like, oh, That was a steal, wasn't it? I mean, this guy's going to play for 15 years, and I hope he does. I really hope he does. He's represented college football and Alabama the right way his whole career.
By the way, Ohio State, Penn State this weekend. I've been to the Shoe a couple times. I've been to Penn State a couple times. That's in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
Let's address something here. This could be very uncomfortable for you. USC is going to have a coaching opening because they played UCLA this weekend, and their season is over. Their season's over before everybody else. If Penn State lost this weekend, and I think Ohio State's really, really special, it'll be a great game, but I would take Ohio State. USC, James Franklin. I hear rumors.
That's
I'm not trying to put. I'm starting the rumors, but they're the worst kept rumors in America.
They are. Let me just tell you. Okay, so
but it lacked class for USC to go. We want him.
My neighbors of mine ask. I live around a lot of USC fans.
Yeah.
People ask me about this all the time. Here's my stock answer. I'm not going to ask James Franklin about it. I'm not going to ask people around Penn State about it because, quite frankly, I feel like that's unfair to them because they're trying to beat Ohio State.
Totally agree.
Get to the Rose Bowl, win a Big Ten championship.
But
you can certainly speculate on that. The timing of this is crazy because USC technically has an off week to end the season. So yes,
USC's season is over by Saturday night. I'm just telling you, if I run USC and Penn State loses, I'm getting on the phone.
Here's the interesting part and that's under the assumption that USC absolutely changes.
Oh, God, come on. Top 24 players in California high school football, they got zero commitments. They've lost the connectivity to the kids.
That's a problem. That's
once
a problem.
Once the kids don't think you're cool, you're done in college football.
You can make head coaching decisions based on two factors as an athletic director. You ready for them?
Yeah.
Butts in the seats, revenue. Recruiting. You can make your entire decision based on that. You don't even have to watch games. Butts in the seats, recruiting.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong on that.
This feels awkward when you say something like that. Joy, did it feel a little awkward to you?
Today was one of those days where you guys agreed on mostly everything.
We did. I don't want to put you in a bad spot with the James Franklin thing.
Well, that's why I'm just not going to I'm not going to ask him. I'm not going to.
I don't ask you for predictions on the games you do. I'm a professional, but I do think in the James Franklin thing, all my neighbors go to USC and they're asking me all day, and I keep looking at the schedule. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if USC wins. Season's over Saturday.
Let me tell you what the biggest element of that USC game is Saturday. Do you want to know what it is?
I'd love to.
It directly impacts Oregon and Utah and their ability to argue for the fourth spot in the playoff. I mean, there are going to be 4 potentially 8-4 teams at the end of the year: Auburn, USC, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State. And whether they all end up there and where they're at in the rankings is going to have a massive impact on Alabama, Oklahoma, Utah, or Oregon. I think actually the 4th playoff spot is going to be decided by Iowa State against the 2 Kansas schools in the next 2 weeks, by Oklahoma State against West Virginia this week. So
Oregon fans should be rooting for USC.
100%. If you're a Utah fan or if you're an Oregon fan, fight on all that. You are desperate for a USC win.
You're not
desperate.
Wrong. You're not wrong.
For a USC win.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.